But it's in that thread where we asked, or where your thread.
Oh,
where
yeah.
I'm typing it right now. There you go.
Oh,
So
I have
yes.
a message.
Chad, try to avoid typing and all that during the show, because God, it's. Ugh.
The good thing is your microphone's not going to pick it up, so it's not going to be picked up on the that side of things.
Right.
Just do it to mess with you the entire show. I'll go click, click, click. Alright, so we're not playing Smite. Magic.
It's not long. That tiny moment of anticipation before the next song. But it's all the time we need.
Oh,
We've
Jason,
already studied
you
every
know
note,
that if you go
every
onto
beat
your Twitch
to bring
dashboard
you
and type in
this
host
song, your song,
Dragon,
right
then you will host my channel. Anybody that's visited your channel will be like, oh, Jason's hosting this guy.
All right. I'll work on that next week.
Yeah. Just mentioning.
Gamers Vault received 2 messages. Do you carry Pokemon stuff? My 5-year-old is obsessed and would love to support someone local. Yes, we do, and we would love to take your money. I mean, we would love to help him in his support.
Nice.
Yes.
And a message.
Yeah, depending on how
Did you post
long it.
that we went live?
I did not.
All right,
Okay.
No, we're not. Oh, yeah, we are.
we are live.
Yeah, depending on how long we run, I do want to get into the event deck for just a minute. In fact, I'll post this link in the show notes.
Okay.
I barely even looked at the event deck.
It's got a lot of good cards in it.
Yeah, I kind of saw some of it.
Hangerback, Whisperwood.
Yeah, Hangerback, Whisperwood, Warden of the First Tree. What's his
have a
face?
land?
Tassiger.
Does that have a land in it also?
Llanowar Waste.
Okay, yeah, that's actually a really good one.
Yeah, Evolutionary Leap.
Yeah. Do you
Over
want to
under.
mention the banned restricted list?
Well, since nothing from Standard was affected, or even Modern, like the only thing was Legacy, which I bought in on a bunch of Black Vices about 2 months ago, so...
Nice.
So you're sitting pretty.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much it will shoot up because it was printed a billion times.
Yeah.
I think the money's in like the black border versions.
I mean, is Dig Through Time really that broken in Legacy? I mean, I played it in Legacy.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked to see that, honestly.
I don't know. Just seems a little silly to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes
And restricted in vintage.
Yeah, okay.
Though I think we should do our little bit again, Chad, like we did last time with the banned and restricted list. Just be like, so the banned and restricted list came out today. Chad, was anything banned or restricted in Standard? You just go, nope. Okay, moving on to our Farewell to Theros block.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Did we do the 20 seconds already?
No, but what I'm going to do is I'm doing something a little bit different this week. Hopefully it works out. I'm going to stop recording because it always automatically starts recording when we start a Skype call. I'm going to stop recording.
Yeah.
And then start it again right before we do our 20 seconds so that it's like right at the beginning of the episode instead of me having to cut out 30 minutes at the beginning and then start editing and all that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Just make one change real quick.
Yeah, you're the expert on this stuff.
Yeah. Trying to alleviate some audio issues.
Your microphone was just picking up all your text while you're typing too. That's funny.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, shit.
No, it's all good.
All right.
I mean, that's just what we have to be aware of when we're using like high sensitive mics.
Yep. All right. So anything else before we actually start recording?
No.
All right. Oh God, that headset looks ridiculous.
It's too late now.
I know.
I'm so getting a knock in on that before the show's over.
Oh, I know. I've got it coming. I'm sure. All right. Let me start recording. Make sure it's going. Okay. All right. Then let's do 20 seconds of silence Starting. I need like a little. Oh, there it is. Yeah, start now. All right. Should be good. Anything else before we get started?
I'm good.
Okay.
good.
So we'll jump right into pre-release stories. We'll do the Theros, and then we'll hop into Bob's questions, and then whatever at the end.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. And give me about 10 more seconds of silence, and we'll get it started. And we're back. Welcome back, everyone, to the Higher Standards Podcast. This is episode 42. I am Mr. Jason Roscom. With me again this week is Chet.
Hey guys, how you doing?
And joining us once again is our good friend, Bob Healy. Welcome back, Bob.
Still can't get rid of me.
I know, right? This is becoming a regular thing, so I don't know. I'm not sure how comfortable I feel with this.
No more comfortable than I am with your headphones, Jason.
All right, let's get that out of the way early. Yes, anybody watching us on stream right now, I am forced to use my wife's pink Beats headphones. So luckily the podcasters won't hear this, or the people listening to the podcast.
Don't let him lie to you. He's doing this by choice.
You've already divulged too much.
Yep. Now, as you all know, this was pre-release weekend. Today is the Monday after, and at least Chad and I went to a couple of pre-releases. Bob, did you go to one at all?
I spent my pre-release weekend in beautiful, sunny Dallas, Texas, doing nothing having to do with Magic whatsoever except reading about pre-releases and deck ideas.
Oh,
Nice.
that's too bad.
Yes, it's horrible.
Yeah. Now, speaking of which, we didn't really talk about this before the show, but I went to go to the midnight pre-release at Gamers Vault thinking, they're not going to sell out of all of their boxes. And yeah, you guys sold out.
Yeah.
I did not do a pre-release at Gamers Vault this time, which I was kind of disappointed about because obviously I really wanted to support the store. But apparently you guys don't need my support, so
No. You can blame Wizards of the Coast, who we love and are a great distributor, but when you're a new store, no matter how many people you can get to sign up, they give you 37 or 32 pre-release kits, and that's all you get for your first time out of the gate. That's it.
Okay.
So, it is what it is. Next time, though, we will have the full pre-release package with all the pre-release kits and all the events and everything. So it's just a one-time thing you got to get over when you open up a new store.
Nice.
Yep. All right, cool. So I went to one on Saturday. I took my son Robert to a local one at a place called Outside the Box Games. It's right around the corner from our house. And it was an interesting event. I ended up building a blue-green kind of rampy Eldrazi style deck. And Rob built a red-black Eldrazi deck.
Mm-hmm.
And we both lost round one. I got crushed by an ally deck. Like, it was not even close. The dude beat me 2-0. I was on my heels the whole time. I'm like, wow, okay, I guess this deck sucks. We roll into the second round, and Rob lost again really quick. And I was beating my opponent, but if Rob wanted to leave at that point, I was ready to just give my opponent the win and drop.
Yeah.
And he finished, and I looked over at him like, do you want to keep playing or do you want to just drop and go home? He's like, no, I want to stay. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll keep playing. So I won that round. It was a 5-round event. I ended up going 4-1 after that. I won my next 4 rounds in a row.
There you go.
I ended up taking third place. So it was it ended up being a pretty good deck. The guy that I lost to was the guy that eventually won first. He had just the absolute nut ally deck, and he won the whole thing. So
just goes to show how persistence pays off.
Yeah, right. And unfortunately, Rob only won 1 round out of the 5. He was disappointed he didn't get any prize packs, but what can you do? He still had fun. He got some decent pulls I didn't get anything good. Like value-wise, I didn't get anything good in my sealed pack except for Void Winnower, which was an MVP, by the way, and nothing in my prize packs at all.
And Void Winnower is the one that cuts off all even spells.
Yeah, you can't even.
Can't even.
Yes.
Your opponent can't even.
Right. And that was my Saturday pre-release. And then, of course, Chad and I, as we always do, went to a Two-Headed Giant pre-release on Sunday.
Yeah.
Expecting to have our normal amount of success, but it didn't quite go as planned this time, Chad.
Wait. You mean the champion Two-Headed Giant team didn't take it all? Didn't take the gold?
I think we got a little bit overconfident. We
dove into decks that were like, oh, so Eldrazi's going to be amazing, which it is, and then allies are going to be bonkers. So we went kind of allies and Eldrazi decks, two different ones, and the allies didn't come out soon enough, and I was off mana, and it was just bad mulligans just all day.
Yeah, so what I ended up doing was I built actually it was a 4-color ally deck because we got a ton of fixing. We got a bunch of Evolving Wilds and a bunch of the dual lands. And it was primarily red-white, but I was splashing black and blue for a couple other allies, like the vampire allies that drain life and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I'll get this ally deck. I'll come out swinging. Chad's going to play the big blue-green stuff. He got an Ulamog in his sealed pool.
So obviously you have to slam that in Two-Headed Giant.
Yeah. And the idea was I'd come out swinging with the allies. Chad would lay back, kind of be control-y, and eventually just drop his big guys. But it didn't really work out that way. We always found ourselves kind of on our heels. And when you're playing allies and your opponent's playing like big 6/6, 7/7, 8/8 creatures, you're not going to get through. And
I never like to blame it on the draw. I always like to blame it on the build. But the first game, I was getting ingested all of my creatures away.
Oh, yeah.
And every draw I had was mana.
Yeah.
So two creatures go.
Yeah, but it's Battle for Zendikar. Landfall's awesome, right? This is great.
Yeah, if you build around.
Yeah. Not if you're playing not if you're playing like the blue-black control-y list. And yeah, it was awful because our opponent was also playing the blue-black ingest deck, and he got the unblockable guy and the flyer guy online like right away, and they were swinging at Chad every turn,
which was the right choice.
Yeah, obviously, and yeah, they were taking his top 2 cards, and every time it was a threat, and then Chad would draw a land. They'd mill 2 threats, he'd draw a land. It was just so it was awful, and then I couldn't get through with the allies quick enough, and we just got hammered. But when we sat down with our opponents in round 1, they asked us what our team name was, and we said, "Oh, Higher Standards," because that's what we go by now when we do these Two-Headed Giants. And they're like, "Oh, like from the podcast?" And we're like, "Yeah." They're like, "Is that you guys?" And we're like, "Yeah, that's us." So
that was pretty cool.
We were actually recognized from the podcast, which is pretty cool.
When are you selling signed autographed cards? How much will they?
Not for a while. We actually have to win something important first to.
Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, as hopefully the listeners know, based on listening to our cast, in Two-Headed Giant you only get 1 game, so you definitely have to choose your mulligans very wisely and build very precautiously.
Yeah, and we talked about it after the fact too. We both probably should have mulliganed that first round.
Yeah.
Because you get a free mulligan in Two-Headed Giant. And the new scry rule is in effect also. So even if you had to...
Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, even if you had to mull to 6 after the free mulligan, you still got to do the scry.
Yeah. Just as a side note, I towards the end of the last standard season, I started playing I started playing the Ensol Artifact deck. And it really taught me how to mulligan and what hands to keep and throw away. And I was really always bad at mulliganing before then. And that deck really just kind of like taught me what a good hand and what a bad hand really kind of looks like. So, it's it can be so important sometimes to
it's tricky, and you also have to take like the format into account.
Sure.
Two-Headed Giant is a much different animal than any other constructed format. So
you're right.
Yeah, and I think we just kind of thought we were on the draw. We lost the dice roll. We just assumed we could draw into more stuff, and it never really happened, and we just got crushed for it.
Yeah, we were a little overconfident. Just like in game 2, I was on 3 colors, and one of my colors wasn't showing up. So
Yeah, because you were on Sultai colors,
Yeah,
and you couldn't draw any green, and he had all green cards in his hand.
and they were all ramped too. So
Yeah.
it hurt. But going into game 3, we were just Jason and I discussed if we want to play game 3, we're just going to rework both of our decks and build completely new decks from scratch.
Yeah, that's what we did. We just tore apart both decks and just started over.
Yeah, and just see what we can do. Now, granted, we're in a lower bracket now because of the fact that we lost 2, but we still wanted to just test the theory and see if it would have been good, if it would have been better when we first started, if we built this way. And turns out, like, I got Ulamog down, and it was just disgusting. Ulamog is an amazing creature when he's on the board.
Yeah, we just had fantastic board states. We both hit our curve really well. And honestly, if we had had those decks in rounds 1 and 2, we would have probably had a much better chance of winning. So we just kind of had to learn as we went, because this two-headed giant format is far different from anything else we've ever played because of the Eldrazi and just because it's just loaded with these massive bombs and these massive creatures, and we weren't really sure what to expect, but we knew after the first couple of rounds what the format looked like, and we kind of adjusted.
Yeah, at that point it was too late.
yeah, it was too late. And
go ahead. You're going to tell them about
the opponents?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we played against a kid. I think he said he was 12, 10, and his uncle. The kid was playing at his first ever event, and
That's awesome.
Yeah, and his uncle was a 49ers fan, so we had a kinship already, and they were 1-1, so they got paired down against us because we were 0-2 at that point. It was obviously we were going to win, because Chad landed Ulamog. We were about to swing in for the win, but we went ahead and scooped because they actually had a chance for prize payout if they won their final round. So we scooped to them and gave them the win and let them move on to play for prizes. And that's how our day ended.
Yeah, so they were really appreciative. It was really cool.
Yeah. And it's always nice to see younger kids out there playing, having fun. And they, our opponents, each cracked an Ulamog in their sealed pools.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
no one walked away empty-handed.
No, not at all. And the kid was obviously having fun, so we were more than happy to give them the win, as opposed to crushing their dreams for no good reason.
Yeah.
Good sportsmanship.
Yeah.
It's always good to build a better community in the game than just try and troll everybody.
Yeah, it'd be the dream crusher, which I've kind of gotten into that habit also. If I'm ever, or if somebody's ever paired down against me and they have a chance to get a prize payout and I don't, I'll always scoop to them. It's good etiquette, I think.
Yeah.
I do it at our store a lot if I'm playing there, if I'm actually playing in like an F&M or a weekly event. If I'm playing against one of our other employees, I never scoop. I just beat them about the head and face mercilessly. But I mean, if I'm playing against somebody else and it's for prize payout, I give it to them. I'm just there to play.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I do like how you're tough on the employees, though. No mercy. Sweep the leg.
No mercy. Absolutely. Well, you got to toughen them up.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's a tough business.
That's good. So, analyzing this format from a limited perspective, I know we're not a limited show, but it's really interesting, and I don't see how the lower to the ground decks really stand much of a chance, because like I said, in that first pre-release, I was playing the blue-green ramp, where I was playing just a bunch of big Eldrazi, and every time I went up against an ally, except for that guy who had just like the nut ally build in round 1, they got off to a quick start. I eventually stalled out the board, and then just dropped massive stuff, and they could never get through. And I eventually killed them all. And I don't see how allies can succeed in the limited environment unless they get the best build possible.
Yeah, so the way I see it is I think a lot of people are going to be thinking along the lines that you are, and just go big or go home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that'll leave a few spots open for people just to be passing allies all over the place. And if one person starts to go into that, they will get their hand fueled.
Yeah.
Because they'll be able to get it'll probably be like 7 great big decks and then 1 super fast ally deck.
Yeah. I could see that. But it's looking like a very weird environment. Some cards that I played with that really impressed me. The first one was the Blighted Wood Falls, whatever the green one is, whatever the green blighted land is.
Blighted Hollow, I think.
Yeah, the one that ramps you essentially. You sack it and tap 4 to get 2 basic lands, put them into play tap. Mm-hmm. That's a really good card. I really like that card. I don't know if it's really going to be that great in Standard, but it's a possibility.
What's
because
cost the sack?
It's tap it and then tap 3 and a green also. So you're tapping 5 lands to do it.
I don't think that's hard at all, and I think that's going to go great with Abzan aggro because they're going to be slamming that Scythe Leopard with the landfall.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going like that route, like the landfall aggro route, sure.
Yeah.
But
Blighted Woodlands.
Woodlands, okay. And what I was doing was I got that Sphinx, the something of Agadim, where if your landfall is a blue card, you tap a creature they control and it doesn't untap during their next untap. Mm. And I would crack that and fetch double island, tap those 2 guys down, they won't untap during your next untap. And I would normally activate that on like my opponent's upkeep after their untap, so they went 2 full turns without getting to use their guys.
Nice.
It's pretty good. But besides that, nothing else really blew me away that I think might make an impact in Standard that I played with or against. I don't know, Chad. What do you think?
So,
did you see anything that really impressed you?
I think Ingest might be a thing. I think Ingest is one of those clutch plays that now we have an unblockable one and the evasion one. It can just destroy decks because of what it takes away. People aren't going to know because of Courser going away, but it's still one of those things that you're stripping cards. You're milling, but it's for better purpose if you're playing with cards that gain out of the exile zone, like that 1/6 cost that gains 4 counters.
Yeah, that was fantastic in those games that our opponents played it against us.
Yeah.
I actually had that in my blue-green build on that first pre-release too. He was amazing. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm real curious to see how many of these cards actually get played in Standard. I mean, some of them are going to have to just because we're losing so many cards. But at the same time, the power level is going down for sure.
Speaking of what we're losing.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Before we do that, today the updated banned and restricted list came out. Chad, did anything get banned or restricted in Standard?
No, never will again.
Okay, moving on to our Theros. First, we're saying farewell to both blue and black, probably the 2 most oppressive colors during the whole Theros block. And as we've been doing for every color up till now, we've generated a top 10 list of the top 10 cards that we felt were the most impactful during their time in Standard. And let's go ahead and go through them. Blue was actually pretty contentious. We all 3 disagreed on what the number 1 through 3 cards should be. Yeah. But it was eventually decided that number 1 was, Bob?
Master of Waves. So, Master of Waves... and that's because I had the wrong card pull up. So Master of Waves is a 3 in a blue, 2/1 Merfolk Wizard with protection from red, and it says elemental creatures you control get +1/+1, and when Master of Waves enters the battlefield, put a number of 1/0 blue elemental creature tokens onto the battlefield equal to your devotion to blue. So basically you get 1/2 elemental creature tokens equal to your devotion to blue. So this was the guy that was the topper on the mono blue deck that was so oppressive during the Theros Ravnica block, and did not survive when Ravnica rotated out. But for the time that he was in Standard, that entire deck in and of itself just destroyed it.
Yeah,
it's basically that or mono black.
Yeah, and when they curved out perfectly, if they had a 1, a 2-drop, the 3-drop, whatever the hell that flying guy was from Ravnica, I've already forgotten his name, Spectre, some sort of Spectre, and then followed that with Master of Waves, they're generating like 7 or more tokens, and it's just
Yeah, it was
sick.
hard to stop.
And I think one of the reasons why Master of Waves ended up being number one is he's also got some eternal play.
Yes.
He's gotten play in the Merfolk lists in both Modern and Legacy. So he's actually got some signs of life outside of Standard.
But definitely a card that dominated for quite a bit of Standard.
Yep. And number two was my vote for number one, but I got outvoted, was Thassa, God of the Sea. She was another key component to the mono blue list. She did everything that it wanted. She let you scry during your upkeep. When you had Devotion Online, she was a 5/5 indestructible creature, and she had that very key ability where you could tap, it was like blue and a colorless, to make a creature unblockable until end of turn.
Yep.
That was huge, and that's a lot of the times how those decks would just finish you off. They'd make either her or something else big unblockable and just kill you over the course of a couple of turns.
Yeah, good thing she's gone away. Eldrazi
Yeah.
Unblockable is not fun.
Five fives for 3 are good.
Yeah, I hear that is pretty well. Chad, number three.
In third, as we are talking, I was also voted out from number one, is Dissolve. I felt that this should have been number one just because of the play that it was still getting until the rotation.
Yeah.
But I agreed that Master of the Waves and Thassa did see the limelight a lot more than Dissolve did. Dissolve was one of those only in a certain deck where Thassa was able to be put into more decks than just the multicolors or just the mono blue.
But, make no mistake, Dissolve was a very key card for its entire tenure in Standard, both before and after cons came out. It was the go-to counterspell the whole time it was legal. So,
And the Scry one is not to be taken lightly on that card.
Yeah, no, that was really good, and especially after playing with it for a couple of years now, it was a fantastic card, fantastic counterspell if you were playing any kind of control. Now, Bob, I know number four is a favorite of yours.
Yeah, it's what it's Ensoul Artifact, or what those of us who played the Ensoul Artifact deck towards the end of Standards like lovingly referred to as running with scissors. So Ensoul Artifact is an enchantment aura for 1 and a blue, enchant artifact. Enchanted artifact is a creature with a base power and toughness 5/5 in addition to its other types. So this is a card that was played ever since I think it came out, but it kind of never found a home till the end of Standard. But man, when it found a home, did it find a home? It showed up at the last GP in Team Channel Fireball, I think it was, decks, and they played Ensoul Artifact and Shrapnel Blast, and that was basically the deck with Hangerback Walker and a couple of other artifacts. And the joke with that deck was, can you count to 10? Because you play Ensoul Artifact on turn 2 onto like a Darksteel Citadel, you slam someone in the face for 5, and then just for good measure, the next turn you just explode it for 5 more into their face with a Shrapnel Blast, and it was a beautiful, beautiful deck.
Yeah, and I think Darksteel Citadel definitely made that card so viable.
Yeah, but I mean, that entire deck was an interesting deck to play because you had a lot of different sort of options on what to throw it on. I mean, and it got tricky because as people figured out how the deck played, you had to figure out what to play Ensoul on so that you didn't get gimped. So, for instance, if you didn't have a Darksteel, the real safe play was honestly to put it on like a Ghostfire Blade because nobody could kill it out from under you and 2-for-1 you. Okay. It got a little complicated.
Yeah, and it's funny too because like you said, it got play even before cons came out because it came out in M15. It was more of a fringe deck at that point because cards like Crackling Doom were around, and that got around the whole indestructible restriction on Darksteel Citadel. But after Origins was printed, Origins gave just a ton more artifacts. It gave Hangerback Walker. It gave the guys that made all the Thopter tokens, and it just made it. Yeah, it just made it that much better, and it really turned it into a tier 1 deck.
Yep.
And
Thopter.
Yeah, and not Ornithopter, but Ensoul Artifact also got some modern play for a while in Affinity, right? I think they've kind of gotten away from it lately.
It pops up as a 1-of occasionally.
Yeah. So again, a card that could see some eternal play down the road, depending on how the deck shapes out. But we know Hangerback Walker is a mainstay in those decks now.
Mm-hmm.
Insane. Next card is a favorite of mine, Jace's Ingenuity. It's pretty simple.
Jason's ingenuity.
Yeah. It's a pretty simple concept. For 5 at instant speed, you can draw 3 cards. That's exactly what the control decks want to do. If they're not countering your spells, end of turn, draw 3, and just keep fueling the hands. And
Oh yeah.
Nothing better than casting that spell.
yeah,
It's a great feeling.
yeah, it feels so good. And that's all there is to it. It's just such a powerful card. There are some cards that are being left behind that are going to take its place, but it will be missed because of just how good and simple it was.
Yeah, and this card will always come back. It's one of those go-to cards that they'll reprint just so that control has somewhere to go.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, Chad, what's next?
In number 6, we've got the big, what can I say, the big transformer for the heroic deck, Ordeal of Thassa. It was able to pump up their creatures by the heroic ability. As soon as they attack, they're getting another counter and then gaining 2 cards off of that because heroic is just insane.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's nothing really much to say about this. Drawing 2 cards in 1 turn and getting 2 counters out of it is gross.
Well, and I should mention that heroic is the, if I'm not incorrect here, the higher standards sponsored deck for this last standard season, right?
No, quite the opposite, actually.
I'm sorry.
We do not condone the playing of any heroic decks. Luckily, that's not going to be an issue here in just a couple of days.
Yeah.
But yeah, this card, it was so good because it would refuel their hands, and they would. By the end, they were running 4 of these. It was just that good, where they played on a creature that probably already had a counter on it, and they get the counter when they cast it, and then another counter when they attack. Sack, draw 2 cards, just keep refueling. So good.
Yep. So number 7.
Yes.
Number 7 is in the same Thassa vein, Bidon of Thassa. So it's 2 blue for a legendary enchantment artifact. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. And for 1 in the blue and tap it, creature your opponents control, attack this turn if able. So just a solid legendary enchantment artifact. Saw some play in mono blue, didn't it?
Oh yes.
Yeah, I think it was like a 1 or a 2 of in those decks.
Saw some fringe playing some other stuff. I'm trying to think about what else this thing popped up in.
Well, because it was in mono blue and they had so many evasion creatures, this was just netting them so much worth.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I would imagine this has got to get at least a little bit of play in Commander, right?
I'm sure it does. It's not any of the decks I play, but
yeah,
doesn't mean anything.
Number 8 is God, this card, Retraction Helix. Retraction Helix was a necessary combo piece for the Jeskai Ascendancy, Infinite Mana combo decks that were going around. It's just annoying.
Counters.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of what the exact effect was. It gives a creature the ability to tap and untap something else.
Basically, it was throwing something back into their hand, which was enabling them to throw back the.
Oh, that's right.
The bag of gold or whatever it's called.
Oh yeah, it was, or any X spell that they could just recast for 0 or whatever, and then somehow untap all their crap with Jeskai Ascendancy and just keep doing it over and over, generating infinite mana.
Well, no, it was generating infinite +1/+1.
Right, that's what it was.
And then they could just swing in.
Yeah, I mean, this also. There are a bunch of little different tiny things in that deck you could do with this too, but basically, I watched, no lie, on Moto one night, Magic Online, somebody pump a, what was it, like a Monastery Swift Spirit, or like a 24/24, just to get, it was, you just kind of watch. I watched just to see how far they would take it, but the game was over.
Yeah. Is that the point where you just hit F6 and then just, enjoy the show?
Yeah, you go make a sandwich, you come back.
Just hit F6 and hopefully they time out. That's what you're looking at.
Yeah, right.
And Chad, what's number 9?
Number 9, another enchantment for the heroic decks. This was kind of a fringe play card. I guess it saw more. I guess Aqueous Form was kind of the fringe play card that heroic used, but Stratus Walk, it was enable to give them the creature flying and draw a card when you cast it. So refueling and giving their creatures evasion while also gaining a counter. Yeah.
Yeah. Any card that replaces itself is pretty good already, and this just gave those big ass creatures some type of evasion. So.
Yep. So number 10 is Void Snare, printed in M15. It is 1 blue, and return target non-land permanent to owner's hand at sorcery speed.
Yep.
So this card saw fringe play, but actually started seeing some main deck play towards the very end of standard season. Jason and I actually watched a game last week where it was used to return Demonic Pact back to your hand in the Sultai control Demonic Pact deck.
Yep.
So that's
and I'm honestly surprised it didn't get more play beyond that. It seems decent. I guess the fact that it's sorcery speed kind of scared people off.
Sorcery speed.
Definitely. Yeah. But I mean, a Vapor Snag that hit any non-land permanent seems pretty good in my book, but I guess it wasn't good enough.
Yep. And we got some honorable mentions.
Yep, we got one. I'm not sure why this is even in here. Swan Song. I don't think that got any standard play at all, did it?
So I put this in there just because it was out of this set and it's getting legacy play.
Yeah, it gets some modern play too, and some sideboards.
I saw it get again fringe play. It's a 1 blue counter anything you want. I mean,
Yeah.
But yeah, not a lot.
Yeah, the downside obviously is your opponent gets a 2/2 flyer, but in a lot of cases it doesn't matter. Like countering the spell is far more important. Sure. Where I see this in a lot of twin deck sideboards where they don't care if you get a 2/2 flyer. They're going to make infinite guys to go around him, but they need to counter that burn spell or that destruction spell to protect their guy.
Yep. Yeah. Aether Spouts, which is just return every attacking creature to the top or bottom of the owner's library, which is pretty sweet, and gets around hexproof, gets around lots of fun stuff.
Yep. Gets around that stupid heroic, but
yes, it does.
Yeah, and I played this. I can't remember what deck it was now. I was playing some just janky deck about 3 or 4 months ago, and I was playing Aether Spouts in it.
This was a one of in my blue-white control deck.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we've got Aqueous Form. Chad mentioned it earlier when we were talking about Stratus Walk. Same kind of deal, just gives a creature unblockable. The heroic decks loved it.
Yeah, and Scry.
Yeah. And that is blue. As far as blue goes, we mentioned that the Mono Blue Devotion was everywhere before Khans of Tarkir came out. It was pretty repressive overall. It's one of the 2 decks that made me stop playing Standard for a long time. The other deck we're about to talk about now, which is
Mono Black.
Yeah, so Black was... I think we have to agree that Black was the most powerful color, period, during the Theros block.
I loved Mono Black.
Yeah, well, it seems like green is going to become the most dominant color.
Yes.
Black was definitely the most dominant color in this
previous standard. I think as the Khans block progressed, green did kind of take over as the dominant color, but before that, it was Black all the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And we'll go ahead and start with our top 10 list. Number 1, who wants to take it?
I got you. Okay, no, Chad, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say we might as well all say it because we've all conglomerated on this. It's Thoughtseize.
Yeah.
Thoughtseize,
no fun.
It's the card that everybody's going to miss and everybody's going to love to see it gone. Yeah. So being able to strip the best card out of their hand, 2 life doesn't even matter. It's one of those. This card will see play everywhere.
Yeah, and there was a reason why this card was like $75 before it got this reprint.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's that good. It gets all the eternal play. For 1 black, you can hit anything except for lands. It's just
played in Vintage.
Yeah. So that tells you how good it is. And I agree with the reprint. I agree with them putting it back into Standard. I think maybe they should have rethought it and maybe put it in one of the latter sets in the Theros block, or maybe put it in M15, so it wouldn't be in Standard for as long as it was.
So you think like this was one of the big reasons Mono Black was so...
Oh, God, yes. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Turn 1 Thoughtseize is...
I mean,
backbreaking sometimes.
Basically, if you had a plan, it's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
And eventually, like you would have to look at your opening hand, and you would have to think, okay, what if he turn one thought seizes me?
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
That's good.
You need like double redundancy in your opening hand just to make sure.
So it was a very real card, very impressive, just very good, solid card. I'm glad that I'm glad they reprinted it because the price was just ridiculous. And yeah, it's it dominated the entire time in Standard. We even had some local guys taking bets as to whether or not it was going to get banned during its time in Standard.
Good old Don Perrine.
Yep. Shout out Don.
Yep. So who wants number 2?
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay. Number 2 is Hero's Downfall, a.k.a. kill whatever you care about at instant speed. So destroy 2 black and a colorless, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Simple, effective, used all the time since it's printing.
Yeah.
Don't know that you got to say a lot more about that.
No, and this came not long after we saw the card Murder printed. And I think it was M13 or 14. That was the same casting cost. It was also an instant, but it just said destroy target creature. Now, in addition to that, we get destroy target planeswalker, which is huge. And really, Hero's Downfall changed a lot because this was like the best card that we had seen that killed planeswalkers. Because before this, cards like, I don't know if you remember, like Domri Raid, he was just dominating the format. But then after Hero's Downfall was printed, he got played far less. And a lot of planeswalkers got played far less and were not nearly as good after we were introduced to Hero's Downfall.
I know everybody always goes to the Doomblade clause, but I feel like this might be the best kill spell that we've ever had.
I could come close to agree with that. It's, the fact that it is 3 makes it almost unplayable in Eternal formats.
I mean, just the fact that you have the choice.
Yeah.
For the format it was in, being able to insta-kill a planeswalker is huge. I mean, so it's basically like they play their planeswalker, they maintain priority and get whatever their ability is, and that's it. So it better be I mean, it really did change the way you had to consider playing them, because the question is always, is 1+ worth dropping this planeswalker? Like, do I get enough mileage out of it? Because if I don't,
then it's just dead anyway. Yeah.
It's dead,
Yep. And Chad, I know you played this next card quite a bit, so I'll let you do number 3.
Number 3 was one of my favorite cards, Whip of Erebos. I love playing cards out of the graveyard. Reanimator is definitely the way I would go if I had the I guess cash pool to go into any legacy. I would easily be playing Reanimator, some type of Reanimator deck. But this was able to take you there in Standard, and being able to get the triggers off of Constellation at the same time was amazing.
Yeah, and being able to whip back our number 4 card was even grosser. Number 4 was Gray Merchant of Asphodel, who, oh man, he was so good in the mono blacklist. He was a finisher all by himself. If you don't remember, he was, 5? And when he entered the battlefield, he drained your opponent for whatever your devotion to black was.
And you gained.
And you gained that much, yeah. So, and then casting him and then being able to flash him back later with Whip of Erebos was so gross.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a deck that thrived off of early life, using your life as a resource early on, with stuff like Thoughtseize or even Erebos drawing you cards. And then it's almost like once you topped off with Gray Merchant, it was like, and I get it all back now, and we're good to go.
Yep. It was such a good card, and it did get a little bit more play than just the mono black list. It did get play in dedicated Reanimator lists. But again, kind of fell off the map after cons.
So number 5, we have the Black Lightning Strike, aka Bile-Blight, which is black, target creature, and all their creatures with the same name as that creature get -3/-3 until end of turn. So at its worst, it is a Black Lightning Strike. At its best, it's going to 2 or 3 for 1 your opponent. You know, gets rid of pesky stuff like Hordling Outburst, or you know, great answer to the after effects of Hangerback Walker.
Yep.
Master of the Waves. I knew it.
Master of the Waves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is why Black was so oppressive, because it had all the premium removal. It had both Hero's Downfall and Bile Blight.
Yeah.
And it's just so good all around. And moving on to number 6, I'm going to take this one, Chad. I'm going to leapfrog you here because I played this card quite a bit before and after cons. It is Doomwake Giant, the cornerstone of the green-black Constellation lists that were played during the Theros block and during the cons block towards the end. He's just very solid. He's got the Constellation trigger of whenever him or another enchantment enters the battlefield, it gives you all creatures your opponents control -1/-1. If you can get a couple of triggers off in a turn, you're in great shape. You're starting to wipe out more than one creature of your opponents. Just a fantastic, solid card.
Yeah.
And
Go
then,
for it, Chad.
Yeah.
In number 7, we've got Read the Bones. Now, this was the card that was able to net you that gain for card advantage, being able to scry 2, draw 2, and again, it's like Thoughtseize. Losing 2 life isn't bad if you've essentially gone through 4 cards in your deck. If you didn't scry like the top 2 scry, you're gaining 2 cards. I mean, you don't know what they are, but you're still netting those, even though the first 2 weren't available. So this got a lot of play in. Did this see play in Mono Black? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it did.
So it saw play in Mono Black back in the day, and it saw play right before rotation in Abzan Control. Being able to put this with Abzan Charm was also great worth.
Yeah, and I remember when this was first spoiled too, there were some debates because Sign in Blood was also legal. Like, is it better than Sign in Blood? And I think the answer has got to be yes, right? Just being able to scry before you draw.
There were lists for Mono Black that ran both. I know that.
I do remember that, yeah. Yeah, pretty sick. All right, what's number 8?
Number 8, Erebos, God of the Dead, 3 and a black, legendary enchantment creature, God. And he's indestructible, as all gods were. As long as your devotion to black is less than 5, Erebos isn't a creature, and he's a 5/7. But the most important part, your opponents can't gain life, and for 1 and a black, pay 2 life and draw a card. So this guy was a 1, sometimes a 2 of, well, usually a 1 of in the mono black deck with maybe another 1 or 2 in the sideboard, usually another 1. And he kept your opponents from gaining life, and the card draw was huge, and turning him on was even more awesome. I mean, just 5/7 that's indestructible's pretty evil and very easy to do in the mono black deck.
Yep. And then, of course, he also started getting some sideboard play when the Mastery of the Unseen deck started getting real big and people were gaining 300 life in a game. Well, yeah, he shuts that off completely.
Takes care of that problem.
Yeah, and then the fact that he can draw you cards is, nothing to scoff at either.
Yeah.
And number 9 is Drown in Sorrow. Great sideboard card. It was for 1 black. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn, and you got to scry 1, I believe. Was it scry 1 or 2?
2. Scry 2.
Scry 2? Okay, so yeah, great sideboard card against your mono red lists or your Jeskai tokens lists, things like that. It was a lot better before Languish was printed. It kind of fell off the map after that, but it was a fantastic sideboard card the whole time in Standard. Really solid.
Yeah.
And Chad, number 10?
In number 10, we have Soul of Innistrad, and this was just one of those cards. We were kind of debating what was going to go in the number 10 spot, but Soul of Innistrad won it over because of Whip of Erebos, being able to get your creatures back, being such creatures as Grey Merchant. This got a lot of play in Sultai when Sultai was first spoiled.
Yeah.
And I think it was put on the map by Fabiano in that one Sultai deck when he started out.
Yeah, maybe. I can't remember who it was that eventually did that, but yeah.
Okay.
Solid card.
Yeah, Liliana Vests and Brain Maggot, 2 cards that both saw play in mono black. Brain Maggot saw some play in some of the Constellation decks on Fringe as well. Liliana Vess also saw some playing some early Abzan decks also.
Yeah, she's a real solid planeswalker. I'm surprised she didn't get more play. Because she was one of the originals, right? Liliana Vess was one of the first 5 walkers printed. I think she might be one of the best ones from that cycle.
I think the only reason she didn't make it higher on our list, and the only reason she didn't see more play, was as soon as the new Sidisi came out, it kind of took over.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. So, Chad, was the next one yours on this list?
That was probably mine. Extinguish All Hope.
Go ahead, Jason. I know you want to talk about this.
Yeah, it's again in the constellation list. It says destroy all non-enchantment creatures. When you're ramping up with all your green and your devotion, casting all these enchantment creatures, and then you cast Extinguish All Hope to essentially one-sided board wipe, it pretty much ends the game right there. It was played more in sideboards than in the main of those lists, but it was pretty good.
What if you're playing another enchantment deck though?
Well, then you obviously don't bring it in.
So then it's not an instant win?
No.
Okay.
Not in the mirror.
Next, we have Herald of Torment. This was seeing a lot of play towards the end of the rotation in the Abzan aggro deck.
Yeah, they were like sticking it onto siege rhinos.
Yeah, being able to fly that rhino right over and smack your opponent in the face. Pretty good.
Just the thought of a rhino with a siege rhino with wings. Like, the card's already ridiculous. Let's just add wings to it and give it +2/+2. Yeah, why not? Sure.
Mogus's Marauder was a pretty good card. He got played in a bunch of different lists. He was played in the mono black aggro lists.
Yeah. Yep.
Where they would drop him, essentially make all their guys unblockable, and then swing in for, if not the kill, almost the kill. And then he was also a key part of the Rally the Ancestors deck, right?
Yeah.
The early iterations of that played him.
Yeah.
Chad, take the next one, because I know you want to talk about this card.
Sure. Next one is Pharika's Cure. This was the sideboard card against most, if not all, mono red decks. Being able to take out the early creatures while gaining life is always a good thing.
Last one, Sign in Blood, which I think we talked about. Pay 2 life, draw 2 cards, 2 black.
Yeah.
Just a solid draw card.
But the biggest difference between this and Read the Bones is this is target player. And I have seen on rare occasions, finishing off your opponent with a Sign in Blood. I've seen it happen.
I've had that happen to me.
Yeah.
I too have seen it occur.
So that can be pretty funny. And that is Black in a nutshell. And this is really our final farewell to Theros. We've covered every color, colorless, multicolor. And overall, I know I've made my feelings pretty clear on what I thought about the Theros block in general. I was not a fan. I didn't like the mechanics. I didn't like the way the format looked at the time. Thank God Khans came out and completely changed everything. But what were your guys' opinions overall of Theros? Chad, we'll start with you.
All right, so I know that when they started making the Theros block, they were just trying to slow the game down because they were putting more emphasis into enchantments. The constellation took longer to happen. If you were going to bestow something, that took longer to happen. So they were just overall trying to slow everything down. While I didn't like that at first, I think going into Khans, it made everything very... it made it a very good package to play with. Because it wasn't aggro all day, every day, running around, taking over. And being able to, like Jason played the Constellation deck, being able to go into different decks that just win, and it's not something you would expect.
Yeah, and
it gave so much variety.
Yeah, and that's a good point, too. Like, it helped create the most diverse standard format we've probably ever seen.
Yeah,
once Khans came out. It was just a good supplement to the Khans block at that point. Bob, what are your thoughts overall of Theros?
Kind of going into what you were saying, when it first came out, I mean, look, I loved playing mono black, but when you look at a kind of an entire standard view, it was kind of just fed in on itself when it was Theros and Ravnica block. It was mono blue, mono black, and that's kind of a lot of what you saw. And I was pretty unhappy with it, frankly. Once Khans hit, totally changed.
Yeah.
I don't know whether they did it on purpose. You'd like to think they are. They're WotC's game developers. They're supposed to be good at what they do. So, really broke the format wide open and put it in a position where there were all sorts of decks you could play, and you weren't just chained to like those 2 or 3 decks that were top 8ing all the time. There were all sorts of things you could play.
Yeah, and that's another good point too, because towards the end you could see like your Abzan or your Sultai decks, but you could also see the heroic decks which barely played any new cards, or your Constellation decks which barely played any new cards. So yeah, it led to, we had to go through some very rough bumps in the road to get to that point, but we eventually did get to a very good state in Standard. But yeah, when it was all mono blue and mono black, I was hating life, and that's, like I said, again, I stopped playing Standard for a long time because of that. And that is it. So goodbye, Theros. So long, and thanks for all the fish. I don't suspect we're going to be going back to Theros anytime within the next 5 years.
Yeah, I don't either.
So hope you guys enjoyed it, and that's that.
I don't know. From a flavor standpoint, it didn't do a lot for me. Honestly, I like cons a lot better, but that's just a flavor thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny too, because I was kind of excited when they first announced it. They announced it's going to be this kind of like Greek gods sort of theme block. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's a new direction for Magic, but the execution just wasn't there for me.
Yeah. Anyway.
Moving on. So we've got Bob back again this week. We mentioned it last week. We were going to bring him back and have him talk a little bit about Gamers Vault, the store, because, again, him and Dick Burns came on about a month before the store actually opened, talked a lot about how things were going, and I wanted to get kind of an update, and I also wanted to ask listeners and members of the Facebook group if they had any questions for Bob from a business or a store owner perspective. And we got some really good questions.
How do you want to do this?
Chad and I will read them, and you can answer them. So, Chad, why don't you start with these first couple questions?
All right, this first question is from Steve Werfel. How much Magic do you get to play once you're on the occupational side of things? So I'll ask one question at a time.
Good question. You know what? Actually, more than you would imagine. So to be fair, I should put this out here right now, and I think we did on your last episode. So Dick and my partnership is interesting in that Dick basically manages the store from a day-to-day basis, and I do a lot of the back-end stuff. But I get to play in 1 or 2 events a week if I want to, if my day job as well allows me to. So more than you would imagine. I mean, as long as you want to.
Nice. Do you find more enjoyment from facilitating others' hobbies and being around people who share the addiction?
I don't know. I mean, I think I probably find, more than playing, I probably find the same. And the reason is because a lot of times they're linked. Like, there's nothing, and I think we talked about this earlier, there's nothing more fun than playing somebody in your store who's like a young guy and watching them either beat you or, even just scooping to them to let them go on and go further and get prize support. But I find also that another thing you can get a lot of enjoyment out of is not just facilitating young people, but facilitating kind of the conversation about a game that I love to play, like what decks are good, what do you think is good, all of the hype, particularly now that comes with spoiler season and rotation, and that's always great to just sit around the store and hear people, BS about all the time, because, it's, I don't know, I like the culture, so it's... Nice. I guess the answer is I get the same amount of enjoyment.
Cool. And final question from Steve. Can you realistically be successful enough to say pay for your child's college?
This is the question everybody asks. It's not, I mean, so we're a startup, right? So take that for what you want, right? We're a couple of months into this. Yeah. Can you be? Sure. I know people in this business who are and who make, money, and they make ends meet, and they've got kids. I don't have children. Dick doesn't, but we both want to. So it's it's in the cards. I'm married. Dick's engaged. So yeah, I think you can. I think you have to manage your expectations, and I think that you also have to understand that the business is can be very margin oriented sometimes. And no matter how much you fall in love with the games that you're playing and the people that you're with, you do have to keep that in mind at the end of the day. That, look, we're we're a gaming store. I got into this because I like to game, but I also have to eat, and I also have bills to pay, and it can be a hard balance sometimes because you wanna be good to your customer base, but you also want to be able to keep the doors open and maybe have something at the end of the week to maybe do what you want to do with money-wise.
Cool.
So,
yeah, makes sense. All right, from Steve Wilkins, we've got a couple of questions. First, he says, what kind of location did you look for? He prefaces this with, our small local shop is in downtown, barely does anything game-related. I have been wanting to open one on the new side of town and cater to all the other card games, plus MTG, and maybe some video game hobbyists as well, but I'm trying to find the perfect location that won't break me but get me started.
Well, all right, so what we looked for, what we got, and if you're trying to start this out, what you should look for are three completely different things. So we'll go through it in order.
Okay.
What Dig and I originally looked for was a place that was big enough to run, we figured 70 people. If we could jam 70 people in a store to do an event, we said that would be a big location and a good location. And 70 people in a store, you don't need as much space as you would think. Like 2,000 square feet can get you there. Trust me, it'll be tight. But if you push all the shelves against the wall and you do everything, you can get there.
Yeah.
2,500 square feet is a little easier to work with. But also, in addition to just space sizes, we also looked for a location with foot traffic. So we went through a lot of different strip centers in the area that we made a decision where we wanted to locate. And we did that by, and I mean geographically. And what we did was look at other game stores in the area and said, okay, you don't want to be next door to somebody for a whole lot of different reasons. But frankly, where we live, and Jason and Chad know this, we all kind of live near each other, yeah. You're not going to help but be rubbing up near someone. So there's nothing you can do to get around that. So you do the best you can. And then we picked out a couple of strip centers. And the reason we did strip centers was we wanted foot traffic. We said, because we're not just a straight card shop, we sell video games and we sell board games and all that other stuff. We thought that we would get a lot more out of foot traffic as well as a solid customer base. So we wanted a nice strip center that had other stores that had people walking around there during the day and sometimes at night. So all that being said, so keep in mind, decent foot traffic, 2,500 square feet. So we got a 7,000 square foot store in a place with insane foot traffic. And how that happened was, we found a store that was about 3,000 square feet. It was a gym. They were going to demise it, which means they were going to cut it in half. We only wanted half of it. And they were going to have some video golf place come in next door. And we said 3,000 square feet's enough. There was a karate store next door, which had a lot of little kids that were going in and out all day. There were a lot of other stores, in the area with just a ton of foot traffic. So it had that. It was in a good location. And 2 days before we went to sign the lease, I was talking to the landlord on the phone. I said, what happened to the video golf place next door? When are they coming? And he said, they're not doing it now. And I'm left high and dry because I was all set on them coming in. And I hung up the phone with him. I called Dick and I said, I'm going to sign the lease. Hey, by the way, funny story, video golf place isn't coming in next door. I wonder who our neighbors will be. And in the course of that conversation, I think it was Dick who first brought it up. He goes, man, you know how many people we could fit in 7,000 square feet? Probably not necessarily the best business decision you could ever make. And what as we worked through it on the phone, what we came out to was, there's no other store in our area that could fit like 200 players and run its own big events. Most of the stores in our area have to go rent a hall to do that. And here we could have it in our back, next door. So called the landlord back up and basically offered him bargain basement for the other half of the space and figured, look, if he goes for it, great. And if he doesn't, we'll just stick with the 3,000. And he went for it. Nice. And so we took the whole thing, and we got a pretty good deal. Now, What I would suggest you do is not do what I just told you we did. It's working out for us. We ran our first big event. We made money on it. You know, we had 130 or 40 people, and it did well. But I wouldn't bank on that as your typical kind of strategy. If you're looking to start something like that, 2,500 square feet, good foot traffic, and try to stay as far away from other like-minded stores in the area, just so, for a whole lot of reasons that we don't have to go into here. They're pretty obvious.
Just take into account that New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the country, so that's
for sure.
And we've just got a huge Magic community here.
We're really, really lucky, and most of the stores in our area are great. You know, I mean, most of them are pretty quality places.
And it's funny, too, because this area can support all of those stores.
Yes.
Because I'm just thinking right off the top of my head, within a 20-minute drive, within a 20-minute radius, I can go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different stores if I wanted to.
Which says something that our events fire every single night. So
yeah.
whether we're just stupid lucky or we're doing something right.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to say, like, I've played in some of the crampiest of cramped spaces, and it is not fun, and I absolutely love. Like, if I had to say what the number one most positive thing about your store is it's the space. Because I love being able to spread out and not be asses to elbows, basically, like sitting in somebody's lap, essentially, as I'm playing Magic.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Chad, you had a question, right?
Yeah, I'll save that for after this one.
Okay.
But Henrik Stephenson, he said, my question would rather be about the customer base. Who would you say are the best customers? And he's going into Magic players, Warhammer, Yu-Gi-Oh, etc.
Sure.
Good question.
So we don't cater to Warhammer, and that's basically because Warhammer is very expensive in the front end to get in on. They require you to carry a certain amount and type of product. The markup is fairly substantial, so you can make money on it, but it's a lot of money to get into in the beginning.
Gotcha.
That being said, we have said and continue to say that, you know, if we had a community that wanted it, we would certainly go into it. It's just, you know, hasn't materialized for whatever reason. Best customers. I wonder how many of them are listening. You know, I don't know that our best customers are really play one game. It's kind of the funny thing. Certainly, you know, we do well by our Magic customers, but honestly, what's sold really well lately is our video games.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, we make good money off TCG Player and you know, and selling Magic singles online. But when it comes to over-the-counter people coming into the store, video games have sold great.
Because and get into that a little bit, because like, what all games do you guys?
So we carry retro video games all the way up to your current stuff, you know, PS4 and that sort of thing, but all the way going back to Nintendo. I think we've even gotten an Atari and a bunch of cartridges floating around the store too. And we carry everything in between, and that it's kind of interesting because our we buy and sell. So people come in with their old games and we'll play test them and buy them as long as they work, and then we reprice them. You know, I mean, we mark them up like any store does, and we resell them. And kind of what's happened is people continuously come in to see all the new stuff we're getting because the games turn over so much, and they find these games. The coolest part about watching somebody buy a video game out of our store that I've personally seen is like somebody picking up like you know, an original Final Fantasy and being like, whoa, I remember this game. Like, this is what got me into RPGs. Oh, yeah, I want to buy this. I mean, and you're like, yeah, that's the game that got me into RPGs too. That's really awesome, you know? So, you know, I think our best customers, the best customers are really the ones who constantly tell everybody else in the area about our store, and that a lot of times ends up being parents of kids. You know, like they bring their kids in, they buy their kids video games, and they go, "Oh, we're going to tell our parents, you know, our three friends who are all parents with like 2 kids apiece, you know, about your store. We didn't even know this was here." And then, sure as heck, 3 other parents will come in with 6 kids, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, so and so told us," and you know, so you know.
on that note too, I don't think I mentioned this to you before earlier, but when Chad and I were playing the Two-Headed Giant at the other store, I overheard at least 2 different conversations of people talking about Gamers Vault and about the amount of space you guys had, and they were telling them, oh, you should go play here on like Monday nights, and oh, I play Modern there on Thursdays. So even at a different store, there was a lot of buzz about you guys.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to hear. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. Our Magic players are diehards. They come in and they spend money and they spend the time there. So I'm not discounting them at all. No, best customers kind of hard to quantify, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It is a tough question.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move on from the next thing.
No, I'll answer that one. The worst customers are the ones that don't come into our store. Those are the absolute worst. All of you people who don't come and patronize our store are the worst customers.
Easy answer. All right. In your opinion, what product is the most profitable? I think you might have mentioned that with the video games, but you might.
Profitable. It really, really kind of depends. What product should you focus on most in order to get the best outcome for your business? So also 2 different things. Profitable. Sealed product is not that profitable. So boxes,
really?
Sealed product and packs is not that profitable. The markup is what it is on it, and that's dictated by Wizards, and then you're selling it at what everyone else is selling it for. I mean, you make money off of it, but singles for Magic can, vary, as we all know, depending on the market and what the heck is going on. But you have to remember, too, that so a lot of people think, well, you carry all these singles, you got to be making a ton of money off them. Sometimes, I mean, if you get lucky just like anybody else and you buy them at the right time, it's like anything else. They appreciate and then you sell them. Sometimes we take a bath just like everybody else, I mean, it happens. It's the nature of the business. What product should you focus on the most in order to get the best outcome? The one if someone else was starting a store and asking us that question, I think I would say the one that you know the most about and you're most passionate about, because invariably you'll be able to market it better to your customer base and sell it better to them. So, we have people that will come in looking to buy video games, and so there are people who work at our store who we know are video game people, and that's who we send them to talk to, because they're going to talk about it more than me. I mean, I play some video games, but I'm not as much of an aficionado. When we have new players come into a store who are signing up their first time to get a DCI number and playing like an F&M, and invariably we end up sending them to Josh Koth, who's our store manager, because he's just really good with that stuff. He gets them signed up. I've never seen a guy like Josh lay out like, here's how you get started. Oh, this is your first time? You know what I mean? Here's what it's all about. He'll explain it to the parents if they're younger kids. Ed Gamble, who works for us, does a really good job buying and selling video games. He just knows that end of it. It's you should sell what you know. I know that sounds really kind of cliche, but it is true.
Sense. Okay. All right, I've got a couple more questions for you here.
Sure.
First, I think we can all agree that this is probably the absolute worst time for somebody to be selling off their Theros block cards. I'm sure nobody is really paying much for Theros cards, except maybe Thoughtseize and maybe a couple of the gods. Yeah. And really, what would an optimal time be for players to sell back cards if they know a card's going to be rotating out? Like the Cons block. We know the Cons block is now on a 6-month clock. When do you think would be the best time for somebody to sell off that, as opposed to like 1 to 2 weeks before rotation when nobody's going to be paying squat for those cards?
It would be really nice if there was a hard and fast rule with this. And it's funny, Dick and Ed and I were just talking about this earlier today before I even saw this question. So it's set dependent. And by that I mean, let's talk about it. It's set dependent in that if you look at a block like Theros, how many legacy or eternal format cards are really sitting in there? So Thoughtseize, that's one. Maybe 4 or 5 other ones, that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So in that case, for a block like that, where you're not talking about a lot of cards that you think are going to see Eternal play, honestly, you know, if it were me, I would have started selling off probably when, I don't know, maybe Origins, before Origins hit. You know, I would have gone down to play sets of what I wanted, knew I needed, and then started getting rid of the other stuff. Yeah. Now, so let's talk about a set like BFZ, you know, Battle for Zendikar. So that's got tons of lands in it.
Yep.
Most of which probably going to see some sort of Eternal format. All those lands. I mean, they're not going to go away completely, I imagine.
Yeah. If nothing else, they'll be casual darlings, like Commander.
I mean,
and whatnot.
Yeah. It's got some Planeswalkers that, you know, Gideon may be an Eternal piece as well. We've talked about that. So a set like that, you probably get away with maybe waiting a little longer because a lot of those cards may end up holding their value. But, you know, for my part, personally, I when a new set, the set before the set before that is going to trigger rotation is when I start kind of winnowing down to what I know I'm going to need and then getting rid of the chaff. From a store perspective, when do we start marking down cards? Again, it's you know, when will we start buying stuff like Theros block for less? It just depends, and that depends more on just what I went through. For Theros block, for instance, we had so many cards from Theros block that we just picked up at shows that long before people were paying less for them, we were, because we didn't need them, you know. And so you know, that's kind of yeah.
Cool. All right, and the last time we had you and Dick on, we asked you what some of the challenges were to opening a store as you guys were building up and getting ready to open your doors. Now that you've been open for it was July, August, September, so 2 months, 3 months maybe.
July, August, September, so
3 months. 3 months, yeah, because we're almost in October. What other lessons have you learned since opening up? Have there been any new challenges that you really weren't expecting? Just some things that that you may not have seen coming.
So the first thing I would say is when going to get sanctioning from Wizards of the Coast, when they say you have to have a sign up designating your store as your store, they are not kidding. We would have had sanctioning a month earlier, but we had to get the stupid sign up front, like the glowy, you know, pop-out letter sign that requires a contractor to come in. Like, we sent them everything they needed, and we just didn't have that stupid sign up. And our rep would be like, "Yeah, look, guys, I know I'm pulling for you, but there's nothing I can do." Like, you're like, "Oh, really?" You know, but kind of on a more serious note, I guess. I don't know if there's any more challenges. One of the things that I would say is if you're gonna go into online sales, you kind of want to make sure that you how shall I put this? If you're going to do online sales, you want to make sure that you do it right from the beginning. So, like, if you're going to sell on TCG, you want to make sure that all of your inventory, your back end, so to speak, is totally sorted and stocked right. Because if you screw up an order on there, it lasts with you for forever.
Yeah.
It's like a black mark you can't get rid of. So if you sell something that you don't physically have and you have to refund the money, it's a big headache, and you don't want that. It's like eBay, same deal. You know, somebody gives you bad feedback, and then, you know, so that's really, really important in the online community, is good feedback. So you want to be spot on. I mean, we had an issue at one point where you know, there was a screw up in inventory, and we're lucky that we caught it before anybody ordered anything, but it took 2 days to redo the whole inventory just because we had to be so careful that nothing else, you know, like was screwed up. Turned out a lot of stuff was, so it was a good thing that we redid the whole inventory. But you have to be really careful. The online community, I guess is what I'm saying, can be much more unforgiving than your, you know, your players that come into your store and see you every day.
I believe it.
Yeah, so there's that. You know, the other thing is be prepared for the hype, and then be prepared, so when you first open, everybody's going to walk through your door and want to come try your store out. Just remember that if your opening night is, 70 people, it ain't going to be 70 people every night. Because, some people aren't going to like there. Some people are going to like their old store that they go to all the time, and they're just trying it out for a novelty. So it fluctuates. The other thing I think to mention is school. School, not that we didn't anticipate this, but we were a little taken aback by it. When college kicks back in, people stop coming out as much because they're back doing what's important in their life, going to school and college and whatever. So your F&Ms are still pretty big, but your normal weekly events can see some of a drop.
Okay,
Gotcha.
And then, well, before we move on, I just had one other last real quick question. Are you guys still making tons of money with Force of Will, the game, not the card?
So it's actually funny, and people from the Magic community will probably be able to appreciate this. Force of Will does make a pretty good amount of money. We ordered like 38 boxes, and we're down to 4, I think, and that was earlier this week.
Wow.
So they sell quickly. But for a while, it was really tough because there was a deck, because of the way the Force of Will rotation works. They have a rotation just like Magic has a rotation. Yeah. There was a deck for a while that was completely unbeatable.
Bahamut.
Quite literally could not beat the deck. And so guess what happened, guys? People stopped playing Force of Will, because what fun is it to go and just get slammed by the same deck
Who wants
every
to play
single
mono
week?
black? Right?
Yeah. Who wants to?
We must be talking like Stoneblade kind of deck, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. And the minute rotation hit, guess what? Now everyone, now people are back. So I mean, it's a game design thing, and it's a young game, so that's going to happen. I mean, Magic had it happen too,
Yeah.
So yeah, it still does well.
Okay, fair enough.
Fine.
I've got one more question.
Yep.
So now that you're completely open, I know that with the internet it's a lot easier to get your name out there, but what are some advertising techniques you're going to use to bring in new customers, or are you just trying to be a side shop with walk-ins?
I think the best advertising technique we found is to be consistent.
Okay.
Honestly, like, customers come in. I mean, you guys saw it this past weekend at your pre-releases. Customers come in, they play, and kind of like the Wayne's World tangent, they tell 2 friends, and then they tell 2 friends, and so on. And I mean, and that in and of itself brings in new customers. I mean, Wizards tracks all the new DCI numbers you sign in, and we've signed a ton in, and that's all people that are not only new customers, but basically new to playing F&M or the game too, which I think is really, really cool.
Nice.
Other advertising techniques, obviously Facebook and the internet helps. Running big events has gotten us new customers, people that lived in the area but never thought to come to our store because they had a store that they always went to and then came to play in a big event, and now they come to our store on a fairly regular basis. That's been helpful. Casually inserting yourself week after week on local podcasts is always helpful. Yeah, so.
Good deal.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for all that info, Bob. Really appreciate it. It's something I know I've always been fascinated with, because I think I had told you before that had you guys not opened up, that was like my #1 post-retirement plan was, all right, I'm going to open up my own gaming card store in the area. And
here's the one thought I would leave people who patronize game stores with. If there are several in your area, you should pick the one that you like going to. And I know that sounds really kind of silly and simple, but what I mean by it is this. Unless you're in a rural part of the country, chances are you've got at least 2 or 3 that you probably get to choose from within, let's say, a 30-minute drive from you.
Yeah.
Okay, and maybe with few exceptions. That being said, patronize the ones that treat you right, and make you want to come back.
Yes,
because they're chances are those are the stores that are really breaking their back, to make a better community, and patronize the ones that make you feel welcome.
Yeah, players too.
Yeah,
because a lot of stores can have like cliques of players that are non-inclusive.
Yes, I mean we are at our store, we're really big on not allowing that to happen. We try. I mean, you can't avoid it totally, but patronize the ones that treat you well, because if they don't, and I mean, this is the same in a lot of business. If they're not treating you well, chances are they're not treating other people in the community well. You know what I mean? Yeah. And there's just no reason to have to deal with that.
So, moving on, this is obviously a very exciting time for Standard, because we're now going into a brand new rotation with no new deck lists, no new tournament results, nothing. The sky's the limit at this point.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to ask you both, are you going to be playing in any upcoming events like this weekend or this week for like FNM, anything Standard, or and if you are, what kind of decks are you looking to play?
I'm going to play in our local FNM, and I am probably going to be boring, and I'm looking at probably playing an Abzan aggro deck. But it's a little different than the normal ones, because it's probably going to be closer to base white, where a lot of them have been kind of base green and black.
Yeah.
With like, Gideon, 4 Gideons probably, Knight of the White Orchid, which I think is an awesome sleeper.
Yeah.
And I'm probably looking at all 4 of the black-white manlands, the shambling vents.
Nice.
Some Abzan Charms, Den Protectors, Wingmate Rock for a finisher, of course Hangerback Walker, because why not? It goes everywhere.
And obviously Siege Rhino, I would imagine.
No, why would don't be ridiculous. Siege Rhino is so passe now that the Corsair Crew fix is gone. Yeah, 4 Siege Rhinos.
Of course.
So boring kind of, but I was telling Jason, I personally have kind of made this new Standard season my season where I'm gonna take the plunge and just play decks that I think are gonna win and bash face over necessarily what I want to play all the time, which would just be Control forever and ever and ever.
Cool.
Fair enough. I'm floating a bunch of different ideas. I know I've mentioned in the past couple of weeks I've been looking at either a blue-black control or an Esper control. Now I'm kind of leaning towards maybe a Grixis Dragons build. Okay. Maybe off of the back of a playset of Thunderbreak Regents, a couple of Salumgars, a couple of Sarkhan, the Dragon Speaker, and then counters and removal, because you've got access to Salumgar Scorn, Draconic Roar, which I think is huge, because we're losing lightning strike effects, and that's really the last one left. Yeah. And some other good removal spells, and maybe I might sneak like a Singleton Ob Nixilis in there because I love him so much. So that's what I'm thinking about jamming week 1, and yeah, I'm probably going to be playing at FNM as well.
Cool.
Nice. Week 1, if I'm able to get to FNM, I want to do the same kind of idea as Bob. I was thinking about an Abzan aggro, but I want to use the Scythe Leopard.
Mm-hmm.
Scythe Leopard into Knight of the White Orchid for some landfall.
Ooh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Get 2 landfall triggers on turn 2. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Yeah, so could easily. I think as we're going into it, Abzan's going to be the one that stays around, and I think aggro is going to be the one that benefits the most.
Yeah. And we'll be back here next week to talk about the Star City Open that's going to be in Indianapolis.
Yep.
So that'll be the first major Standard tournament after rotation, and we'll see a whole bunch of lists, but I wouldn't put too much stock into these early lists because I think a lot of these guys are going to try and play it safe. And again, the cliche has always been the pros kind of keep the good lists to themselves until the Pro Tour. Yeah. They don't really show their hand too much at these Star City Opens. So we'll see how that pans out.
Yep.
And beyond that, I think that's everything we wanted to cover this week. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about?
Only when we get to the shout-outs. After.
Okay.
That, no.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay, just as far as I go, we mentioned some Magic Online stuff before. As soon as the Battle for Zendikar hits pre-release on Magic Online, I'm going to be streaming a lot more, so keep an eye out on the Facebook group for that. I'll announce when I start streaming, and yeah, that's all I got. So
I'll host you if I'm available.
Okay, cool. And let's move right to shout-outs. Bob, what you got?
So, in addition to the normal FNM we run this Saturday, Gamers Vault will be running a pre-release, or a release event. So it'll be Saturday at 10 a.m.
Okay.
And it's going to be a sealed event. And the entry fee is $25, a little steep. However, the start time's 12, not 10. But the registration's at 10. Okay. So for $25, first prize is, drumroll please, an unlimited tropical island, and second prize is an unlimited bayou. If we go 24+ players, we will then add a third prize of an unlimited taiga and a fourth prize of an unlimited scrubland.
Nice.
All right.
So well worth your $25.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you guys going to have the release date promos? Did you get the release date promo cards?
I don't know if we did. Dick might have gotten them. We'll post them on Facebook if we did.
Okay,
but
cool.
I think if for whatever reason we don't have them, I'm pretty sure an unlimited tropical island makes up for a release date promo.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So,
all right.
So please come on out and enjoy yourself on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, do you want to mention the other tournament you're having in, what is it, November?
Yeah, so that'll be, hold on one second, just so I get all of the details right.
Yeah, so because if you remember, they just recently finished a big standard tournament where they were giving out power to the top 8, and it was pretty successful. You guys had well over 100 people, right?
Yeah, we did very, very good. So we've been doing an open series, so this will be our second open series game, and it'll be on November 14th, standard. Entry fee's $50, same as it was the last time. Caps out at 200, just like the last time. Registration's at 10, and the event starts at 12. So the prizes. First prize is an unlimited Black Lotus, and second to fourth place are choices of an unlimited Mox Pearl, Ruby, or Emerald. As far as 5th to 32nd, which there is prizes for 5th to 32nd, you know, the first time we did this, and so here's a lesson learned, we gave out some Tarmogoyfs, and we gave out a bunch of different high money cards, but the values fluctuated so much between when we announced it and when the actual game hit that we had to, or when the actual event hit that we had to switch some of those cards around and place slots. So what we're doing this time is, as it gets closer, we will announce 5th to 32nd place prizes, but trust me, the prize structure will be appropriate. If you guys came to our first open series, I don't think anybody went away feeling horribly empty-handed who placed. You know, and then because of scheduling this year, we're kind of doing less events than we expected. So the top 8 of all of our open events will qualify you for an Gamers Vault Invitational event. That we will then have, and that'll be exclusive to the Invitational guys. Additionally, I should also mention that come this Monday will be the return of Higher Standard at Gamers Vault. So since there'll be new deck lists, we will submit the winners to Jason and Chad, and they can read them off and deck tech them if they want, or do whatever they want with them. But yeah.
Nice. Well, maybe somebody other than Ed Morgan and Eddie Gamble can start winning some of these and get their deck lists out there.
Yeah.
And keep an eye out for those events. And if you guys need coverage for your November event, let us know. We've got a little bit of experience doing some live streaming now.
Yeah,
I've heard.
So, Chad, you got anything else? Any shout-outs or anything before we close out?
No, just as usual, if you guys that are listening are new to the stream and have not joined the Facebook group, it's Higher Standards group page. We will approve you as soon as you sign up.
Yep. And just big shout out to everybody in the Facebook group. We're well over 200 people in there now. A lot of people contribute on a daily basis. Big shout out to Ethan over at Midwest Magic and Matt and Travis over at Aethercast. And that's really all I got. So with that, see everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week. Take care.
See you later.
See you.
We'll be back. I have to wait a few seconds before I stop recording because the last couple of times I'll hit stop and it'll cut out like part of my "we'll be back."
Oh, okay.
And now I'll turn it off. Now that we've got a few seconds. Cool.
Awesome.
Now that went well.
Everybody that's on the stream, thanks for stopping by. I'll be playing Smite a little later, but
is that why they're all here?
I don't know. Well, a couple of them were like, "What is this?" And I'm like, oh, that's why I was typing. So yeah, I'm gonna stop stream right now so that I can broadcast this onto YouTube. Thanks, guys.
Oh yeah. And when you get the YouTube link, can you just post it right to the Facebook group?